Welcome back to this course on blockchain and its applications. So, in the last class we discussed about the Byzantine Agreement Protocol and we have broadly looked into the Byzantine fault tolerant architecture. You have seen that what is meant by Byzantine fault, and then we have looked into that in an asynchronous environment. If you want to tolerate Byzantine fault, that means if you want to reach consensus in a BFT environment, then you need 3f plus 1 nodes where f is the total number of faults including Byzantine crash and link failures. So, today we are going to look into the design of such kind of Byzantine agreement protocols in the presence of Byzantine faults. So, in this context we are going to look into one algorithm which is named as practical Byzantine fault tolerance or PBFT. It is one of the most popular Byzantine agreement protocol in an asynchronous environment. So, we are going to look today the base protocol. In the subsequent lectures we are going to learn about the safety and liveness criteria in PBFT architecture. So, this is the keywords for today's topic. So, we are going to look into PBFT algorithm in details and then we are going to learn about a concept called quorum in PBFT. So, to start with, as we mentioned in the last lecture that this BFT consensus is much more non-trivial compared to CFT consensus, where you need to deal with the nodes where the nodes are behaving maliciously. So, it is not only about the crash fault, but there are some nodes who are going to send wrong information or malicious information and trying to deceive the network from its consensus behavior. So, that way initially people have or researchers have tried to design BFT consensus in a simplest environment. So, this is one of the fundamental work in the direction of Byzantine agreement protocols. That was possibly the first research paper that introduces this concept of Byzantine fault, and they have designed a architecture or a protocol that works in a centralized in a distributed environment in the presence of Byzantine fault. So, the title of the paper is The Byzantine General Problem by Leslie Lamport, Robert Shostak and Marshall Peace. So, this corresponding algorithm is named as Lamport-Shostak Peace algorithm or LSP algorithm. So, this LSP algorithm it considers a synchronous environment. It considers a reliable communication channel. Reliable communication channel means that is the message that you are transmitting, that messages will never get lost. Then it assumes a fully connected network. That means, whenever you are sending certain message, that message is being received by all others in the network. And another assumption is that the receivers always know the identity of the sender. So, that way you can find out that who has actually sent the message. So, interestingly, in the last lecture, the way we discussed to reach consensus, that means by sending the message or relaying the message to all others and then counting the majority voting, that particular algorithm is actually this Lamport-Shostak Peace algorithm. So, we have interestingly already looked into that algorithm, although I have not named that algorithm in the last lecture. So, today I am just providing the name of that algorithm, but the problem with that algorithm is that it makes a number of assumptions which are not very realistic assumptions. So, first of all, it considers a synchronous network. So, in a real network, if the network is large, then assuming synchronicity in the network is difficult. Then also you may not assume reliable communication channel all the time. So, your message might get lost. Well, similarly, you may not assume a fully connected network. Well, so it might happen that you need to send the message in multiple hops. So, those are the kind of many practical things which this LSP algorithm does not consider, and as a consequently this LSP algorithm, what the researchers have criticized it, saying that it contains such kind of unrealistic assumptions for real network. But it was the kind of first attempt to design a consensus mechanism for Byzantine agreement, and they have shown that or rather they had formally shown that to reach into a consensus with Byzantine agreement, you need at least 3f plus 1 nodes. So, when you assume that you have f number of faults in the system. Now, you remember one thing, that whenever I am talking about that there are f number of faults in the system, and that is in the context of Byzantine fault tolerant architecture. So, this f includes all different type of faults. So, it includes the crash faults, the link faults, as well as the Byzantine faults. Well, so it is not like that you have f number of Byzantine nodes and then there are some nodes which might crash. It is not like that. So, this f include the total number of faults that can happen in the system. Now, from that particular context, we are saying that well, if there are a maximum of f number of faults in the system, including the Byzantine fault, the network fault and the crash fault, then you need at least 3f plus 1 nodes in the system. So, that is the kind of theorem which was formally proven in this paper by Leslie Lamport, Robert Shostak and Marshall Peace. So that way I would say that this paper is very much fundamental, which you should read about, but at the same time the algorithm that they have proposed it not at all used in a real network. So, after that there were many different variants of BFT consensus that had emerged. People initially started working on synchronous network by eliminating all those different assumptions that was made in the LSP algorithm, like the reliable communication channel, the receiver always knows the sender and so on, or the fully connected network, and accordingly tried to design algorithms for reaching consensus. But the major hurdle was that design an algorithm for an asynchronous environment, because in an asynchronous environment the things get much more challenging. Well, so as I mentioned earlier in the context of safety consensus as well, that in an asynchronous network, if you are not receiving a message, that can infer multiple things. So, it might happen that well, this message got delayed, you are going to receive the message at a later point of time, or it might also happen that you will never receive the message because the corresponding network has a fault. Well, and at the same time what might happen that you can receive the messages out of order. So, the message which has actually been sent earlier, you can receive it later. Well, so that way those kind of challenges are there, and because we do not have a synchronous behavior across different participants in that distributed environment, generalizing the consensus or providing an idea of consensus in that environment becomes much more difficult. So, in that context, this particular algorithm, practical Byzantine fault tolerance, or what we call it as PBFT in short, that was a kind of pioneering approach which developed an asynchronous consensus mechanism by releasing most of these unrealistic assumptions that was there in the LSP consensus. So, they basically used the notion of cryptographic techniques. We will see that how that cryptographic techniques have been used. Particularly, they have used this idea of digital signature for verifying individual messages, and one of the prior assumption that the receiver must know the sender's identity, they have eliminated that kind of assumptions by using this cryptographic technique and the digital signature technique. So, this PBFT algorithm was first published in Usenix OSTI in the year 1999, and the title of the paper was Practical Byzantine Fault Tolerance by Miguel Castro and Barbara Liskov from this particular algorithm they set up the pioneering movement in the distributed system domain, and today many of the practical systems, including many of the permission blockchain environment, actually uses PBFT as their core consensus mechanism. So, the Hyperledger Fabric platform that we are going to learn, that Hyperledger Fabric platform uses PBFT to reach consensus. So, we will see that how PBFT works. So, why we call it as practical? Well, first of all, it considers an asynchronous environment, and whenever we are considering asynchronous environment, again we need to keep in mind about this FLP impossibility. So, you would not be able to ensure safety and liveness together, but just like Paxos, it also gives the priority to safety over liveness. Well, and we will see that for liveness you need additional assumptions in PBFT, but this notion of practicality that they mention, that basically is limited towards supporting safety only. So, the liveness assumption that they do, for that you need certain kind of special support from the network. So, we are going to look into that in details. Then it utilizes the digital signature to validate the identity of the senders. And finally, this is a very low overhead protocol. Well, so because it is a low overhead protocol, that way it is very easy to implement it on top of a practical network. Now, as I mentioned earlier that this PBFT had been incorporated in a large number of distributed applications including blockchain. So, different blockchain platform like Tendermint, Hyperledger Fabric, they have used PBFT as a core of their consensus, and PBFT also uses cryptographic techniques to make the messages tamper proof. So, it includes a hash along with the message, so that the message integrity can be validated at the receiver end. So, we are going to see that in details. Now, let us get a broad overview of PBFT. So, PBFT, just like Paxos, it is based on state machine replication, and it considers 3f plus 1 replicas, where f can be the maximum number of faulty replicas, and these replicas they move through a succession of configurations which are known as views. So, how PBFT work, that you have a current view, now you run PBFT on that particular view. Now, when there is a configuration change in your algorithm, you move to a new view. Now, how we are going to define a view in PBFT? Basically, we define the view in terms of the roles of the node in that PBFT network. So, out of the nodes which are there in the PBFT network, one of the nodes is termed as the primary, and remaining nodes or replicas, they are termed as backups. So, I have a primary replica and I have multiple other backup replicas. So, if I have 3f plus 1 number of nodes, so I have one primary and 3f plus 1 backups or 3f backups. Well, that is the kind of notion of a view. So, typically what happens that a view is indicated by identifying the primary in a set of replicas in PBFT. So, whenever the primary gets changed, particularly we see that the protocol moves from one view to the next view. Now, this primary which is there, this primary works like a leader, and primary proposes a value. Well, so it is something similar to the proposers in Paxos, but in case of Paxos we could have multiple different proposers, but PBFT assumes that there is a single primary. Now, you can always ask me the question that how you are going to elect that primary, right. So, for that you can use different other algorithms, you can use any kind of leader election algorithm, and to remember that we discussed about this leader election in the context of Paxos. So, you can use Paxos for leader election, maybe you can use that kind of algorithm to elect a leader who works as a primary for your PBFT system. Or you can also have a kind of sequence of predefined sequence that says that, well, this node will become the primary, if this nodes become faulty, then this node will become the primary next, and so on. Well, you can fix it as well. So, this primary they proposes the value and the backups they accept the value. So, the backups are similar to the acceptors in Paxos. Now, when the primary is detected as faulty, as I mentioned earlier, that the view gets changed, and this PBFT it elects a new primary and a new view is initiated, and every view is identified by an unique integer v. Well, so that integer actually signifies that this is you are in view v. So, when the primary become faulty, you will move from view v to view v plus 1, and only the messages in the current view is accepted. So, that way if you receive a message from a previous view, that message will be dropped. So, this is the broad idea of PBFT. So, in PBFT we have two broad role of a node, either it is a primary or it is a backup, and there are clients who are actually initiate certain transactions in the form of request. So, these clients are not the part of the main PBFT algorithm, they are someone who are proposing the transactions or proposing certain requests, and this primary and backup they are the replicas who together will decide whether that request can be accepted or not, well, or what would be the value for that request. So, depending on what you want to achieve from this consensus algorithm. So, the client sends a request to the primary and primary broadcasts that request to all the backups. Now, this primary and backup, they collectively run the PBFT algorithm and decide on consensus. So, once they decide on consensus, they sends back a reply to the client. Well, now the client basically waits for 2f plus 1 replica. Why it is 2f plus 1 replies? For that we will discuss it later on. For the time being, just keep it in mind that the client will wait for 2f plus 1 replies, where f is the number of the faulty nodes. And once the client gets back 2f plus 1 replies, the clients believe that well, this is the value which is coming from the consensus. Now, let us look into the algorithm of PBFT in detail. So, as I mentioned that the algorithm starts by the client sending a request to the primary, and then this primary collects all such requests from different clients. So, there might be multiple different clients in the system. So, the primary collects all these messages from different client and order those messages based on certain predefined logic. So, here you can try to map it with our idea of state machine replication that we discussed earlier. So, in case of state machine replication, if you remember that example where I mentioned that well, one transaction is that I have transferred 100 kb potatoes, another transaction is that I have transferred 50 kgs of onion. Now, you need to actually decide that in what order you are going to execute this transaction. So, certain ordering is being done. So, that ordering is being done by the primary, and then the primary sends a pre-prepare message to all the replicas, all the backup replicas R1, R2 and R3. Now, what primary does, that the primary assigns a sequence number n to a request or a set of requests, the way you are going to reach into consensus. So, in case of blockchain, it is a set of transactions. So, it depends that how you are organizing it, and multicast or broadcast this message pre-prepare V N D. This entire thing is encrypted with the private key of the primary along with a message M to all the backups. Now, what are these individual things? So, V is the current view number. Well, so V is the current view number, D is my message digest, well, and M is the message that I am going to send. So, the request that you are going to send, that is equal to M, or in case of blockchain, the block or the set of transactions that you are going to send, that is the M, and D is the digest of this M through certain predefined hash function, and this entire thing is encrypted with the private key of the primary. Now, whenever you are encrypting it with the private key of the primary, again when the replicas get that information, the replicas can immediately validate that this message is coming from the primary, right. So, this is something based on our notion of digital signatures. So, what actually happened, that this encryption through the private key, it works like a digital signature, and that information is used to validate the identity of individual backup replicas. Now, in this context, once the backups receives this pre-prepare message, the backups need to validate them, and this pre-prepare works as a proof that the request was assigned a sequence number n for the view V. Well, so as I mentioned earlier, that prepare that primary, it assigns a unique sequence number. So, here the backups are agreeing on that sequence number, basically agreeing on the ordering of the messages that have been done by the primary. Now, to validate this pre-prepare message, a backup accepts the pre-prepare message if the signature is correct and D is the digest of the message M, the backup is in view V, the corresponding backup, it has not received the different pre-prepare message with the same sequence number n in view V with a different message digest. That means that message is unique within that current view V, and this sequence number is within a threshold. So, this sequence number is within a threshold, that condition is put to ensure that the message is not too old. Okay. So, it prevents the replay attack in the system. So, what is a replay attack? The replay attack means that someone had sent a message earlier, you have captured that message and you are replaying that message later on. Maybe that message have been transferred in the previous view, you are capturing that message and going to replay it now. So, for avoiding such kind of replay attack, for avoiding that older messages cannot be replayed. We put a threshold, a maximum and a minimum threshold on this sequence number n, and the backups validate that well it is within that sequence number and it is within the current view. Well, so these are the kind of set of conditions that backup checks, and if the backup finds out that these conditions are satisfied, then it validates the corresponding pre-prepare message and accepts that pre-prepare message. Now, once a backup accepts this pre-prepare message, so the correct backups they send a prepare message to all other backups including the primary. So, this prepare message it works as a proof that the backups agree on the message with the sequence number n under view v. So, the pre-prepare message that is being sent from the primary with a particular ordering by providing a particular ordering on the message, and then if the backups agree on that ordering, the backup actually broadcasts that information through the prepare message. So, here these prepare messages are working like a vote. Well, so I am providing a vote saying that hey, I agree on this particular thing that the primary has proposed. Well, so I am agreeing on the primary's proposal. So, the message format for this prepare message is something like this. So, you send prepare with that the current view number, the sequence number of the message digest, and this entire thing is encrypted with this key of the corresponding private key of the corresponding backup k. So, this is sent by the backup k. So, this message is broadcast, and as I mentioned that this message works like a voting. So, let us see that how that voting method works. Now, to accept the prepare message, the primary and the backup they accept the prepare message if the signatures in the message are correct, the view number is equal to the current view, and the sequence number is within a threshold. Now, you always remember that these messages may be received out of order. Well, so it might always happen that a backup may receive a prepare message before the corresponding pre-prepare message. Well, so it need to keep track of all this information. So, it can always happen that well for this particular backup say that for R3 this message got delayed. Okay. So, this prepare message got delayed. Now, if this prepare message gets delayed and it receives the prepare at this time, so that means it has first received this prepare message and then it is going to receive the pre-prepare message. Well, and remember that we are working on an asynchronous environment, and when we are working on an asynchronous environment, such kind of things can always happen. Well, so that way whatever messages you are getting, you need to keep track of that, so that you can make a match to them, and later on you can find out that well this is the kind of valid configurations that we have received through this set of messages. Well, so always keep on this possibility of receiving the messages out of order. Well, so here is an example when you can first receive the prepare messages and then you can receive the pre-prepare message, because this pre-prepare message got delayed. Now, with this once this message is being accepted, PBFT runs something called the 3-phase commit protocol. Well, so this 3-phase commit actually controls the voting behavior in PBFT. So, this pre-prepare and the prepare that they ensure that non-faulty replicas guarantee on a total order for the request. So, what is mean by total order? The total order basically means an ordering of the messages on which the replicas or the participants they collectively agree upon. Well, so for example, I am providing say message 1 as sequence number 1, message 2 as sequence number 2, message 4 as sequence number 3, message 3 as sequence number 4. That basically means that I am providing a total order of the messages, that the message will come in this order M1, M2, M4, M3, and everyone is agreeing on this particular ordering of the messages. Well, this notion you can try with the notion of the blockchain, where I am going to add the blocks in a particular order. So, in what order I am going to add the blocks, everyone in the network should agree on that order. So, everyone should agree that well the first block is B1, then the second block is B2, the third block is B3, the fourth block is B4 and so on. Well, so this particular ordering which is being decided upon by the consensus algorithm on which everyone is agreeing, this ordering is called the total order. Well, why this is total order? Because this ordering is final and everyone is agreeing on this particular order. There is another notion called partial order. Well, so this in case of partial order, this ordering basically follows certain kind of DAG. So, it might happen that the ordering of the message is something like this, that M1, M2, M3 and M4 are in the same level and M5 is next. So, that means you can have two different ordering of messages, one is M1, M2, M3, M4, M5, another order can be M1, M2, M4, M3, M5. Well, so this is something called a partial order, but here we are agreeing on a total ordering of the messages. Now, because this ordering is unique and this pre-prepare and the prepare message to which we are the primary is providing a sequence number to every message and then the backups are collectively agreeing on that order, that is ensuring such kind of total ordering of the messages. Now, once I have this total ordering of the messages, then the assumptions for commit is that the primary is non-faulty. What happens when the primary is going to be faulty, we are going to see it later, and we are making an assumption that you can have a maximum of F faults including crash plus network plus Byzantine fault, and you have 3F plus 1 number of nodes in your network. Now, the 3-phase commit protocol says that a message is committed if 2F prepare from different backup matches with the corresponding pre-prepare. Well, so that means I have received 2F number of prepare messages and those prepare messages are corresponds to a pre-prepare message, and that way I have a 2F plus 1 vote. Why 2F plus 1 vote? Because this 2F matches that I am making, this 2F number of pre-prepare message, 2F number of prepare messages are coming from 2F different backups and I have my own vote. So, including my vote, right, that means the vote from the primary and the vote from the backup, I have 2F plus 1 vote. Well, so I need 2F plus 1 vote from the non-faulty replica to commit a message. Now, question comes that why 2F plus 1 vote? Now, in this case you should keep in mind that this 2F plus 1 votes may not be same. Why? Because you might have Byzantine replica. So, in case of crash, your life is easier because the crash fault ensures that you will not receive any message. But if it is a Byzantine fault, your life is not that much easy. In case of Byzantine fault, you might receive a message, but that message might give a wrong impression or a wrong information. Well, so that way the 2F plus 1 votes that you are getting, it is not necessary that those 2F plus 1 votes are going to be the same votes, or you are going to receive those votes from only the correct replica. So, some votes may be from Byzantine faulty replica. Now comes the concept of quorum that says that why I am considering 2F plus 1 vote. So, what is mean by quorum? Quorum basically means that the minimum number of votes a distributed transaction needs to obtain to get committed. Well, so this concept of quorum was first proposed by David Gifford in 1979, and this is widely used in commit protocols and replica management, including the protocols in databases where you need to design certain kind of commit protocol. So, it basically says that how many number of votes you actually need to be sure that you are accepting the correct things. Okay. Now, to see that what type of quorum we are going to use in BFT consensus. So, in PBFT it uses something called a Byzantine dissemination quorum. So, what is a Byzantine dissemination quorum? It supports two properties. One property is called intersection, that basically means that any two quorums have at least one correct replica in common, that is something similar to this majority idea in case of Paxos. And the second one is called the availability, which says that there is always a quorum with no faulty replicas. Well, so that means even in the presence of Byzantine faults, you should be always having one quorum. So, PBFT uses this Byzantine dissemination quorum with 2f plus 1 replica. Now, the question comes that why 2f plus 1 replica? How this 2f plus 1 replica is satisfying this intersection and availability property? So, first of all, keep in mind that you have f number of faulty nodes. So, you need at least 3f plus 1 replicas to reach consensus, that we have seen earlier. But you do not know whether these f faults are crash fault, network fault or Byzantine fault. So, we consider two cases. The first case is that say all these f are the crash fault or network fault. So, crash fault or network fault, as I mentioned earlier, that your life is easier because you will not receive messages from them. So, if you are not receiving messages from them, that means you will receive 2f plus 1 prepare messages from the non-faulty nodes, and all these 2f plus 1s are the non-faulty votes. So, you can reach to an agreement. Well, so for crash fault, if there are f number of crash faults or network faults, your life is easier because you are getting 2f plus 1 votes. These 2f plus 1 votes are non-faulty votes. So, you can reach to a consensus. The difficult case is case 2, when all these f's are Byzantine faulty, and as we seen earlier that the Byzantine faulty nodes send messages. It is not like crash fault that they are not sending any message. So, in this case you might receive at most 3f plus 1 prepare messages or 3f plus 1 votes. Out of them f are from the Byzantine nodes. Well, now in this case it is sufficient to wait till 2f plus 1 prepare messages, okay, because you know that you have f number of faults. So, if you get 2f plus 1 messages, and out of those 2f plus 1 messages, even if f are faulty, there are f plus 1 non-faulty messages. Well, so that means you still have majority of the votes coming from the non-faulty nodes if you wait till 2f plus 1 votes. Well, but here you remember that you cannot wait till f plus 1, because it might happen that out of those f plus 1 votes, all the f are faulty. If all the f are faulty, then you just have one correct vote, you cannot reach consensus. So, that is why we need 2f plus 1 quorum. Now, again you remember that you are on an asynchronous channel. So, the messages can get delayed and can be received out of order. So, that way you need to wait until you are receiving 2f plus 1 prepare message out of the 3f plus 1 backups. So, the moment you receive 2f plus 1 votes, you can safely take a decision based on the majority voting, that what majority of those 2f plus 1 are talking about, because in that 2f plus 1 there can be a majority of f faulty. So, I have at least f plus 1 non-faulty votes out of those 2f plus 1. So, in PBFT, so once this commit algorithm is executed based on this 2f plus 1 quorum, everyone says a commit message to others, the primary and the backups. So, this the message format for the commit, then the view number, this n message number, message digest, ID of the backup k encrypted with the private key of that particular replica. Now, the protocol is committed for a replica when it has sent the commit message and it has received 2f commit messages from other replicas. So, that way you have 2f plus 1 votes. So, one you have sent, you know your vote, and you have received 2f other votes. So, you can compute that 2f plus 1 vote and find out the majority and decide what is going to be the consensus, and whatever be the value at consensus, you send that reply to the client, and once the client gets the reply, clients can take the decision from that 2f plus 1 messages. So, in conclusion, what we have seen today that PBFT works with 3f plus 1 replicas with a Byzantine quorum of 2f plus 1. So, that means you need to wait till 2f plus 1 number of votes. So, once you are getting 2f plus 1 votes, you can decide that what is consensus, because for that 2f plus 1 vote, you can have at most f number of faulty nodes. So, you can have at least f plus 1 correct votes. So, you can decide what is there in the consensus. But till now we have not seen the safety and the liveness idea of PBFT. Although you can get an idea of safety, you can understand that the protocol is safe, because in this 2f+1 codam, what we have seen earlier, that if FR faulty, FR crash faulty, then anyway you are going to get 2f+1 messages, and those 2f+1 messages are from the correct nodes. So, you can take the decision. Even if those F all are Byzantine faulty, you can wait till 2f+1 messages. By the more time you are getting 2f+1 messages, you know that at most F are faulty. So, at least F+1 are non faulty. You can still rely on the majority voting and decide what is the consensus value. So, that way the safety is ensured, but the critical things remains about the liveness of the protocol, because we have one inherent assumption here that the primary is non faulty. Well, so we need to see that what happens when the primary becomes faulty. So, in the next lecture we are going to look into that, what happens when the primary in PBFT is faulty. So, thanks all for attending this lecture. See you all in the next lecture.